Welcome to the Inspiring Tech Leaders podcast with me, Dave Roberts. I'm delighted to welcome this week's special guest, Freddie Quek, who is the Chief Technology Officer at Times Higher Education. Freddie is responsible for data-driven products and solutions such as the World Universities Rankings and the Sustainable Development Goals Impact Dashboard. He is an agile and disruptive leader in the tech space and thrives in challenging environments. Freddie is a multiple award-winning global technology leader who has worked in Singapore, the US, the UK, and across various industries, including automotive, higher education, publishing, insurance, travel, and financial services. Freddie is a fellow of the BCS and a judge for the UK IT Industry Awards. He has Master of Science degrees from the London School of Economics and Headley Business School. What a pleasure to have you here today, Freddie.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So just to give our listeners a little bit of a background to your career, perhaps if you could tell us where you started out your career and then how you got into IT.
Well, I actually got my first job in IT whilst I was a student in London. And it was a choice between working at McDonald's or working for, at that time, publishing company that has got no tech, but they were looking for a programmer. And I got into IT because since I was young, my uncle had a computer. It was a Radio Shack TRS-80, if you remember one of those.
Yeah.
And they had a game on there, and it was on cassette tapes, and I found it to be interesting. Instead of playing music, I can play a game, and then I managed to modify the behavior of the game. So that's how I got into both computing as well as the career that I'm in right now.
So how did you then follow into a leadership career that you've got today?
It's interesting because when I started in publishing, there was really no computers, no internet, nothing, and I was helping to build a sort of a publishing editorial production system, all kinds of tools and utilities. But very quickly, we started having to solve new problems, such as building a subscription system for your print journals. And then my boss realized that there's too much for one person. He asked me to go and hire another person, and that's where it started from 2 to 20 to 200, and that's how my career has progressed from there.
So when you were going through this change in publishing, how aware were you of what Amazon were doing at the same time?
That is really interesting because when you're in it and you are going through all those changes, you don't notice it. It's just like somebody saying you're boiling a frog. I'm not condoning that we should do that, but just imagine if you're in a pot of water and you get it boil over time, you don't really notice those things. So I started, as I say, in publishing. There was no computers, no internet. When it came along, it was exciting. You're doing something for the first time, and it just continued from there. And then I remember we had a major project to launch a new platform. We spent a long time and lots of money going on it, and then came along. I'll talk about the iPad for now, yeah? The iPad. It came along and I was asked the day before the launch, hey, Freddie, what is this thing and what should you do about it? And I said, I have no idea. And I think that's pretty much the experience when all those tech companies started coming along, even Google and Amazon. And you just got to marvel at how in our industry, innovation just happens so rapidly and so fast. And then, and so many good ideas that comes along all the time, right?
I always think the story around Amazon and around being an online bookstore and how that rapidly changed to what it is today really is quite an incredible story. So.
I mean, I remember just even for example like e-commerce. In those early days, nobody believed in e-commerce, right? Too dangerous. We should not give anything away. But look at where we are today. Without e-commerce, nothing functions, right?
Absolutely. So during your career ascent, what is the best bit of advice that you've received from someone that's helped you?
There's a few. One of them is probably the one that says never stop learning. I remember when I graduated from uni, and then the very next day when I was just chilling out with my classmates, we started asking ourselves, so what exactly is our job? What exactly is our career? And at that time, I make a very soft, noddy comment saying, look, I think I must as well give up now because the amount of new things that we have to learn all the time is there. And yet when you become an expert, it's over. And that was just at the beginning of my career. But I'm also very glad that that was also the moment of truth, in the sense that both advice from my friends and also just talking to people, you realize that life is never about stopping learning, right? You never stop learning. In fact, you need to be to have an open mind, to be open to learning, to new ideas. So don't ever believe that you're an expert. And even if you are, like right now, I'm doing research. I was told, because I'm doing a doctorate, as soon as I'm done, probably I will be an expert for 15 minutes. But after that, I'm just like everybody else. So that's the lesson that I've learned, right? Be flexible, learn all the time, because if you do that, then you can cope with anything.
It's definitely it's a journey, not a destination, isn't it? In
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
respect. So yeah, no, that's one of the things I've always said as well. It's keep challenging yourself, keep learning new things.
Yep.
I think that's just so important, and certainly working in the tech industry, it's changing all the time.
All the time.
So
Yeah.
if you look at how things have developed over the last 24 months, and really things that the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way that we operate and the way that we work, and the innovations that have come out from that as well. And the world will be a different place going forward as well. But I think it's continually changing, so you need to keep continually learning as well. But,
Yep.
so talking about the COVID-19 pandemic, how's that impacted your business and what you're doing, and has it supported innovation, or has it hindered innovation? What do you think?
In our case, I think sometimes when you are forced into a corner, it's either fight or flight, right? And I think the natural tendency in the early days of the COVID was everybody started saying, "Whoa, the first thing we have to do is to let's just maybe it's just a short-term thing." And then when you realize it's not a short-term thing, you say, "Look, we really need to focus on keeping our heads above water. Let's just keep our costs low," and all. We did all those things, but very quickly we also realized that we have to find a different way of solving the problem. So during this period, during this COVID period, the past year, we've launched 3 new products. And what was really good was that we actually launched a new product in April. That's the Sustainable Development Impact Dashboard thing. Because without that new product, we will not be able to sort of gain new revenue, which therefore gives us a new revenue stream rather than relying on existing ones where almost every business is impacted upon, right? So I think the lesson learned here is that sometimes when you're in adversity, it doesn't mean that you just got to give up or you just got to assume that there's only one answer. It might also be the greatest opportunity to do something different.
I couldn't agree more. But what about the impact it's had for trying to find and retain tech talent? Has COVID-19 impacted that in any way?
Yes, actually, I think it's helped us a lot. Just so you know, I joined Times Education a month before COVID started, and I was told that my engineers are not in the office. So there is a sort of a perception that when people are not working in the office, they are not as productive as they can be because the product team is there, but not the engineering team. So that was a perception. And what I found was that the majority of the engineering team had a remote first policy anyway. So they are supposed to be working from home and they will only need to come to the office when they need to. So during this COVID period when I had to recruit people, the fact that we already had a remote first policy that's been working well for many years helped us to recruit people. In fact, I've just hired a new starter from Bulgaria. I also had another one from Dubai, and they both started without having to be physically in London or in the UK to start their role.
I think a lot of companies have now faced that situation.
Yep.
Yeah, it's. I think it definitely has changed the way that we will work, and the future workplace will look very different. I think.
I agree.
As we come out of this pandemic, so thinking about as we come out of a pandemic, and what that means for you, but what are the strategic aims you think for the next year that you need to achieve?
Yeah, so as part of this pandemic, we actually, part of my role was to align the technology strategy with the company goals, and we have a 3-year plan. And part of the 3-year plan is that we're taking this opportunity to build a new foundation for our company because we are now no longer just about 1 or 2 products. So we need to find a way to build a digital platform that allows us to scale, allows us to have more scope, and therefore I would like to think that we can create assets that can be used everywhere, especially when we are a data company. We have lots of data. For example, the rankings data being one of them, the SDG data is another. Why should we be only building specific products for them, right? If data is data, if we treat data as a proper asset, then suddenly you can create even more products. And that's what we're trying to do here. With first, right now is just to build the foundation, the building blocks, and then hopefully next year we can focus on deprecating some of those legacy, and then soon after we can sort of scale at speed and at scope. Yeah.
So that's really interesting. That's the approach that you're taking. How do you go about creating that type of culture of innovation that you're creating there, though? What are the steps you do to make that work?
Yeah, it's when you talk about innovation, right, everybody wants it, everybody says they have it, but what exactly is it, right? And I think innovation, they do fall into two categories. Are you talking about incremental innovation or radical innovation? For example, in your day to day, if you're talking about running the business, being operational, you're talking about work improvement, you're talking about continuous improvement, right? Those are your incremental innovation, right? And you know what? Everybody should be always striving to do that. But that's very different from radical innovation or trying to create a new revenue stream, because that requires different thinking, right? So the scale of investment, the scale of what you do, is it a science project or is it a big investment that you got to get approval before you start? Those are very different. So I think it all depends on what you do, but you need to be able to do both.
One of the things I've always thought is that you need to make space for innovation to occur, and that it's very difficult to try and create that innovation environment when you're also dealing with the business as usual,
Exactly.
the operational day to day. So how do you try and balance out that? How do you balance out dealing with the day to day business, but also being creative in the way that you need to be?
Right. So the luxury would be that you have a separate team, right? And a separate budget to do that. And I've seen companies, I work for some of those companies whereby having a separate R&D team, a separate group doesn't really give you that, because you're not that closely connected with your customer, with your market, right? With your users. So that doesn't quite work, right? What you want to do is to make sure that the people that you have in your organization, they are the ones that knows best. But what you want to do is to give them the opportunity to be able to do both the business as usual, as well as come up with ideas that they have a chance to making it happen. So the way I try to do it in my organization is twofold. Yeah, one is that I ask every member of my team, when they are part of a product team, let's say, and I call it a vertical team, right? They need to split their times not in two ways, not 80-20, meaning 20% is BAU and then 80% is just product roadmap. I get them to split into three ways, right? So the BAU is non-negotiable, but for any other capacity, it has to be split not equally, but depending on the work you need to do, the priority, the backlog, split between product roadmap as well as strategic tech. So this is how I try to create space whereby we're able to do things properly, doing things once that can be benefiting everybody. So that's one way of dealing with it. The other way, again, is that I ask my team to have the mindset that they have to wear two hats. The one hat that they wear, that everybody wears, is being right. And they are being right as part of the product team, saying this is what they need to do. But I need them to wear another hat, which is to do the right thing. So this is the concept of a horizontal team. I want them to build assets for the company, right? So when you want to do something for your product, and now you have to come to the table and have another conversation about what is the right thing to do for the company, you may find that those answers are different, right? So that is how, on one hand, I'm giving my team that ability to be able to use their time to split across three things rather than two. And then secondly is to make sure that they all have that mindset that understands trying to balance between building things for the vertical versus building things for the horizontal.
I think it's also building things that sometimes won't be successful there as well.
Correct.
It's people talk about fail fast. I think it's okay to fail as long as you learn from what where you failed. But is that something that's encouraged?
Yeah, totally. So the way we do it is this, because these days everybody talks about doing agile. So we have a 2-week sprint, right? Mm-hmm. And I say to my stakeholders that all we need to do is, instead of thinking every sprint is a development sprint, all we need to do is to designate a future sprint, let's say the forthcoming one, to be a design sprint or a innovation sprint or an experiment sprint. It doesn't matter what you call it. And what you do is be prepared to write off those 2 weeks. So that it becomes something that's very quantifiable, right? Finance people can deal with that. They say, okay, I know how much cost is involved. And if we try and it doesn't work, guess what? Fine, we've learned a lesson and we just write off 2 weeks of work. And it's up to each company, their own tolerance level, whether how often they can afford to do it, whether they do it once a month, once a quarter, once every 6 months, once a year. But now that gives you an opportunity as well as for your team, because they want to have that kind of nourishment. They have ideas. They want to be able to try it out. And now you've given them away without having to spend tons of money or having to go and justify writing business cases that may not get anywhere.
So, well, absolutely agree. That sounds like a good approach. I think one of the things you see though is that you can create new products and services and you can innovate, but then that product matures and needs to be maintained. There needs to be a roadmap around that. And how do you manage the technical debt element of product development, where you've developed a new product and then you've got to maintain that to the right level and the right degree going forward, but also continue to innovate on new things within the pipeline? So how do you get the balance there?
Well, exactly, and this is actually happening to one of our sort of flagship product. And this is why I say, when I sort of ask my team to split themselves into those 3 ways, this is how we do it, right? So the BAU is non-negotiable, and pretty much that BAU line is constant, right? Every month we have to just get data out for the same product, but because it's a legacy sort of solution, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to maintain it. So what we do is that the product roadmap thing could be a balance of new features or just enhancements to make sure that it doesn't fall over, right? So that's your product roadmap. But then I also now have that strategic stream where you use that as the opportunity to start rebuilding some of those foundation blocks. Yeah. So you have to find a constant balance across, as I said, not 2 things, but across 3 things. And it's not easy.
No. So, what do you think are the main challenges that face technology leaders today then?
You know what? The ironic thing is this, it's actually not the technology, it's the people, right? So
Yes.
it's the best part of my job, but it's also the hardest job, right? When I look at the amount of time that I have to spend with my team, and I'm talking about even from leaders to the most junior person in the team, is usually about people issues, not about technology issues. Technology, technology people are probably one of the smartest. They are so clever in terms of being skilled in problem solving. It's just that they're using not only code to solve problems, but they have to think about how to solve the problem. So problem solving is not the difficult thing. But when it comes to human relations and communications, I can say that a lot of my job is to just help them to do that. And in fact, one of the things that I do is that I not only have a technology strategy for my company, I actually have a comm strategy for my team, trying to just train them, teach them, coach them in terms of the kinds of things that we should do better in terms of communications.
I think that's a great approach. So, in terms of digital transformation, what do you think really inspires teams to want to come to work? Being a digital workforce, how's that helping your business?
I think when you talk about digital transformation, what exactly is that, right? If you're talking about being a digital company or tech company, then of course I think these days everybody needs to be one, and COVID, for as bad as it is, I believe it's been a great leveler because it's now forcing everybody, from those who can't, those who won't, and those who are willing, those who are so evangelizing technology. Suddenly now we have a great level playing field whereby everybody is able or have to work together, and in that digital transformation in terms of the tools and environments that has been created, it has been really helping to make that happen, right? And part of that, for example, we're not even talking about complicated things, simple things such as, now, everybody probably has forgotten about the usefulness of emails, right? But I remember when emails first came along, suddenly you don't have to write long letters that takes a long time to post to get to the other party. But of course, these days people forget about email, thinking that it's not really fit for purpose. But there are other tools that has come along that has been great. For example, Slack. I think you'll find that most tech companies, most engineers, they find it to be a great tool. But then if you find out whether the rest of the company are using those tools in a way that will work for them, I would say most of them, they still don't even know what that is. And therefore, there's a great opportunity to help our colleagues to learn about new ways of working using Slack, and also like new ways of collaborating and brainstorm, like using tools such as Miro bots, right?
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I think that there's a few organizations where you hear about that they about banning the use of email internally within organizations, and that they want to go to more about instant communication. And I know I certainly use Teams throughout the day. It's just part of how you work, and a lot of that is it's sort of instant chat piece. But I also find if you get into email threads, it's sometimes so much easier just to get on a call with someone and actually just speak to them, and you can tend to resolve some of those things a lot quicker. And that comes back to the what you're saying about people, and it's knowing, it's creating that right culture to be able to have those sort of open conversations that you sometimes need to have. But I think technology can be a huge enabler, but it can we've also got to be ensure that it still drives efficiency within the organization as well.
Or don't hide behind those tools that stops you from having real conversations with people, right?
So in terms of real conversations, that's an interesting one I want to talk to you about, which is how do you influence the other members of the C-suite within an organization, and how do you talk about the value of technology in terms of the importance to the business?
Yeah, I think, at least the thing I learned in my life is that I remember in the early days, and I now hear it when I join organizations, they always say to me, Freddie, the reason why you're here is because we've got a tech team there, but we just don't understand what they're talking about. Yeah, I'm sure what they say is really good and stuff, but we just don't understand. So the thing that I've learned is that we got to really find ways to make what we are trying to get across understandable. But more importantly, is to understand from our stakeholders' perspective what exactly matters to them, right? So I think the storytelling part is really important as a leader, because we sometimes forget that we're dealing with human beings, and there might be anxieties about things that people don't really know. What can we do not only to show value, but also to find a way to educate them in a way that they feel like they're knowledgeable enough to make good decisions? Either you can make them feel like they can rely on you, which is sort of a good thing, but also a bad thing, or probably it would be better if they can rely on you as a sort of a good counsel that will always help them to have enough of the right information to make decisions themselves, right? So I think part of any leaders is, in terms of our value, it's not just about the work that we do, it's about helping others to really understand the value of technology, the benefits, the value, and then for enabling them to make those decisions themselves rather than making it for them.
I think where I've seen it is to focus on the business outcomes rather than the underlying technology that may actually deliver those outcomes. And I think there's often people talk about not all innovations are commercially viable either. So
that's right.
You've also got to make
Where's
sure
the value, right?
Are you driving value from this? Is it something that you can actually monetize? Is it something that's going to add value? Is it going to drive efficiency? What are those things that you're trying to look to achieve? Through either be it product development, or if it's internal efficiencies and things like that. In terms of internal efficiencies, how much automation are you looking at the moment in terms of how to automate the business today?
Yeah, in fact, that's part of my tech strategy, right? So one, it's an acronym, and one of the acronym is letter A, and letter A stands for automation. So you can imagine in our space, because we have a lot of data, right? Previously, we will be doing a lot of manual checking, right? Because you can't get something wrong, you can't get the rankings of a particular university wrong, and then therefore the associated data. So it requires a lot of human knowledge, human understanding to try and check that, and clearly that's not sustainable, right? So we've sort of started a big drive to make sure that, as part of the tech strategy to drive automation, is that I want those kinds of things where technology can help, right? Because technology, in this case, automation, can be more accurate than a human, right? That's for sure, and that is where we're starting from very basic places. But hopefully we can do more and more of that, and it's already helping us. We're able to cut down, the amount of time that we use to check data from weeks now to days, and I'm hoping that it will be down to hours and minutes.
What examples of automation have you been able to deliver?
As I mentioned about the rankings data, that is where, for example, if you imagine there are at least thousands of universities in the world, right? And before you launch the product, you have to ensure that every institution has got the right ranking, because that is what matters to them. That is publicly seen. But then also all the other associated data that goes with it. How do you ensure accuracy? And when you don't have a proper regime in place, you find that that's what tends to happen when you start from scratch. You build that solution and you rely on humans' knowledge. Oh, I remember this university was number 2 before, and therefore this year number 3. So this data looks right, but that is not sustainable. So last year we started the process of making sure that all those rules, business rules, are captured and automated. So now it's just a matter of running through, that process, which in the past would have taken weeks. Now it will be taking not weeks but days. But I'm hoping that we will continue to optimize it so it becomes hours and minutes.
I think that's some of the benefit you get now from being able to leverage cloud computing as well.
Exactly.
So doing things at scale and having that burst capability to actually run some of these processes incredibly quickly. That just wasn't, I think when we both started our careers in the tech space, it just wasn't available, was it?
Exactly.
So it's really exciting times to see how the technology has progressed over the last few years.
Yep. The amount of innovation that we see in our own industry, right?
Absolutely. So what advice would you give to anyone starting out a career in technology?
I would say what I said earlier on about learning, right? You have to embrace learning, invest in learning, and it's okay to make mistakes, right? Because, nobody's perfect. The main thing is to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes twice. Right. And even when you are starting off, you'll find that it may feel tough because there's so many things that you do not know. But I don't think that is going to be the issue, right? So long as you know that whatever that you put in is part of your learning, and that experience would put you in a good state in the future, right? Have no regrets. Whatever bad situation, good situation, take them all in your stride. It's part of your learning. It's part of what is going to make you to be in the future. And this is why, I really believe that, today I have no fear, not absolutely no fear, but I have less fear of trying something new, less fear of learning, because I'm not afraid of making mistakes. So long as, I sort of take the approach that I will be asking for forgiveness rather than for permission. Right?
I think that's very, very good advice. Well, thank you so much, Freddie. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today. I think our audience will also gain a lot from your insights and experience. So thank you once again for joining us today.
No, thank you for having me. Great questions. Yeah, Dave, fantastic.
Next week's podcast, I'll be talking with Danny Atias, the current #1 CIO in the UK. Please subscribe and follow the podcast and stay tuned for more inspiring tech leaders.